Hello readers, I'm Amy, and today we are going to go through my entire 2021 TBR, not counting books that I get from the library that might be new and I actually have the chance to get them. So, to explain this a little bit, for 2021, I am planning on going full-time with freelance and with school, freelance graphic design. And in that, I will not be having a regular income, so buying books won't really be an option. I had to sit down with myself and tell myself, like, here's what you can buy, here's what you can't buy. I will be purchasing another year on the Brooklyn Public Library card that I have, because that was totally worth it. I read so many books from the Brooklyn Library. It's got a lot more options than my personal library does, or than my city library. So I will be purchasing that for books. However, I cannot buy any new books in 2021, and even just saying that, it's gonna be rough. But these are all of the books that I bought and haven't read, or got as gifts and haven't read yet. So we're just gonna go through them so you can see a little bit of what my year is going to be like. I'm not doing these in any particular reading order. I'm just going through my shelves. I have the Souls Trilogy. This is a boxed set that I got from someone at work who was done reading them, and she's like, hey, what do you think of vampires and witches and stuff? And I'm like, I love vampires and witches. So I got that series from her. I also got Time's Convert. I don't know anything about this. I don't know if it's separate from All Souls, or if I need to read it before or after. I haven't really looked into that a lot. I have the second and third books in the Broken Earth trilogy. I did pick up the Obelisk Gate a couple weeks ago while I was waiting for the Burning God in the mail. That's the third Poppy War book. And I wasn't able to concentrate on it. I love Broken Earth and I love N.K. Jemisin. However, I do feel that she takes a lot more concentration for me. Not in that she's hard to read. I love her writing. I think it's brilliant. But I want to take my time with her writing. I really want to soak her up. And I was too excited about Burning God coming in the mail. And then it came in the mail the day after I started this. So I still need to finish that series. I have The Three Body Problem. I realize that the author of this series is very problematic. I have a video kind of addressing that, but I did buy this book. I paid for it. I heard of it on Emily Fox's channel because she reads a lot of sci-fi, and I want to go ahead and give this a try. Then I was hoping to read Fledgeling for Vampathon, and that didn't happen because October was rough for me. And I haven't read Octavia Butler before. I'm nervous because some of what I hear from her books makes me think that she's kind of tricky to get into and maybe a little more literary than I tend to like, but it's about vampires. I want to read it. Stranger in a Strange Land, classic sci-fi. I am a little nervous about it because the stuff that I'm hearing and the little bit that I started on a camping trip once, I know it's going to be pretty sexist. I feel like classic sci-fi feels more sexist than other classic genres. I'm not sure if that's their prediction on the future or what, but I do want to read this, and I don't know if I've told you guys this before. I think I have. If you have watched Third Rock from the Sun, I adore that show. Aliens coming to Earth and trying to figure out how to be human. It's great. And I know that that is not what Stranger in a Strange Land is. But whenever it says that he's raised by Martians and has to learn how to be a man, I think of Third Rock from the Sun. So I want to read that book. The Greek Way, I've had this book on my shelf for years. I got it because I read Mythology, or Greek Mythology, by Edith Hamilton. I guess some kids in my high school had to read it and they weren't too excited about it. I see a lot of people who aren't too excited about it, but I loved Mythology. And actually, okay, I do have it. I was going to say, I haven't seen that book in a while, but no, it is on my shelf. So I saw The Greek Way by Edith Hamilton, and I do want to read this eventually. I was all about Greek mythology in high school. I loved Edith Hamilton. I liked her storytelling style. I'm going to read this next year. It's gonna happen next year. Warbreaker, this is a new book that I bought outside of Sanderson's series, like his standalones, or standalones for now, I would like to get in these kind of copies for some consistency on my bookshelf. I hear nothing but good things about Warbreaker, so I'm excited for this. I do want to kind of put it in between some books that I'm maybe less excited about to make sure that I'm always reading something awesome. Not that I wouldn't always be reading something awesome. I got these books because I thought they were awesome. Then The Killing Moon is the first book in N.K. Jemisin's Dreamblood Duology. I got this for my birthday from one of my friends, and I am excited for anything by N.K. Jemisin. Jemisin is she's just brilliant. I don't have the second book in this series, and because of my stipulations on purchasing, if I love it, I can't buy this second book, and that's gonna be painful, but I can do this. I can get through it. The Memory Police. This is another one that I've heard a lot about. It's supposed to be a kind of dystopia. I'm really loving modern dystopias. I'm not big on classic dystopia at all. Brave New World was such a slog, and I've never been able to get through the first couple pages of 1984. Just not my writing style. But modern dystopias, I'm loving. I'm excited for this. Got this from the same friend who got me The Killing Moon. Clan of the Cave Bear. I don't see anything about this on BookTube in my day-to-day meanderings. I had a friend recommend it to me a couple years ago. I had never read it, and they're like, "What? You've never read Clan of the Cave Bear?" It's a whole series. I started it once. I was not in the mood for it at the time. It's actually a much bigger book, but going to read this in 2021, I swear. Lightning Flowers, I just got this sent to me by Little Brown Spark because they reached out to me and they're like, "Hey, so you want to review a brand new book?" And I'm like, "Okay." This is my journey to uncover the cost of saving a life. And from what I remember, the author is looking into the defibrillator. She's looking into like the different parts of a defibrillator and where they come from and how the costs of it add up. And when I heard the synopsis, it reminded me a lot of The Omnivore's Dilemma by Michael Pollan, when he goes through different ways of getting food and creating a meal from them. It's like building up your subject. That's what this reminds me of. So I'm really intrigued to get into this. This is kind of my little nonfiction area. Come As You Are. I've been meaning to read this one for years, and whenever I start it, it feels really textbook in its writing, which is why I haven't gotten very far in it, but I hear nothing but good things, so I just gotta get through it. Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. One of the last people who hasn't read this book. Been wanting to, haven't gotten around to it. I hear it's great. The idea of what happened with her and her family and just everything that came out of that. It's very upsetting. Reparations, people. Reparations. We need them. Letters Home by Sylvia Plath. The only book of hers that I've read was The Bell Jar, and I loved it, thought it was great. Haven't read her poetry. I might at this point, because I've been reading a little bit more poetry this year, and it's not bad. Generally, poetry isn't really my genre. I don't usually understand that style of metaphor, but I am interested to see what her letters home are like. The Witches, and I also have Cleopatra over here. These are both by Stacy Schiff. I'll probably read Cleopatra first. I loved Cleopatra in high school. I hear good things about this author and this book in particular. I've started The Witches again. It felt kind of dry and textbookish. History is really hit and miss for me with books, so I want to start with Cleopatra, get a feel for her writing, and then move on to The Witches, which, if you don't already know by the title, is about Salem. Feminist Disability Studies. I got this in college. It's thick. I think it's like a series of essays on disability and feminism. I've always been nervous about it because, like, you can feel how sturdy this book is, and I haven't been reading as many academic texts lately, but I do feel that it's important that I at least give this a try. So in 2021, I'm going to stop being afraid. Band of Sisters. I actually got this for my husband. He was in Iraq at one point, and I thought that he might be interested in this book. He hasn't read it yet, but the more it sits on the shelf, the more I'm interested in it. American Women at War in Iraq. I really don't understand that much about the wars. When it comes to wars and politics, I stop paying attention, but I think it would be good for me to read about women in war and kind of understand more about that. I really should understand more about that. Foreign Studies. Again, this is a book that I got in college. It's a series of essays. I read 1 or 2 essays in here for a paper, and I did really enjoy it. I just never picked it up because, again, it's a hefty book. In academic writing, you gotta be in the mood for that kind of thing. The Uses of Enchantment. I actually bought this a couple years ago. I'm pretty sure I have the haul for this on my shelf, or on my channel. I should read this. I'm afraid that it's going to be dry and boring, but it's called The Uses of Enchantment, The Meaning and Importance of Fairy Tales, and that just sounds fascinating, and I need to just pick it up already. Gloria Steinem, My Life on the Road. I don't know too much about Gloria Steinem. I know that she's a feminist icon. I bet I would really like her, so I want to read her autobiography. Eat, Pray, Love. Hillary from Melted Books. I promise I will read this eventually. She really wants me to read this. I haven't gotten around to it yet. I know it's a nonfiction. I hear great things about Elizabeth Gilbert's writing, so we'll see how that turns out. Homebody, I actually just picked up when I went to Walmart yesterday for water and some groceries and stuff. And I know there's a lot of discussion over whether or not Insta poetry is any good and whether or not Rupi Kaur is any good. I like Rupi Kaur. I can digest her writing very easily. I understand her. It's the kind of poetry that I personally am into. Don't judge me too harshly for that. I'm going to read Homebody, and I bet I'm going to love it. To this shelf, I have Jampa Lahiri's The Namesake. I read... Is it The Lowlands? I think is the name of the book. The Lowland. Lowland. And really liked it. She is an Indian author, and I always wanted to read a little more of her, so I will eventually pick up The Namesake. I have The Ministry of Utmost Happiness. I got this several years ago on recommendation from someone at Barnes & Noble. They said that there was an intersex character in here. I'd like to do a video on intersex characters eventually because they're not characters that you see a lot. I feel like even more rarely you have an intersex author writing about an intersex character, or at least someone who understands medically intersex writing about them. Like, I'd like to see more intersex characters, more nonfiction on intersex, more on intersex in general. I have met people who think that intersex isn't real, and that's frustrating. And I want to raise awareness about it, and I think it's a really interesting topic, and I think there's a lot of stories there to be told. But I hear that this has an intersex character, so I am really interested in that. I need to pick that up one of these days, because I've had it on this shelf for years. Should really probably read my oldest books first. The Vanishing Half, I heard nothing but excellent things. I did pick this up. I haven't actually read it yet. I've been wanting to. Life has gotten in the way. Half of a Yellow Sun. I've been back and forth on this book. I've started this book, and I didn't totally understand what was going on. I don't know a lot about African history, and I think that's a huge part of it. Then you had Chimamanda coming out as agreeing with Rowling as far as trans women. But I still feel like I have to give this a real try. I know she's really important in feminist literature. I know a lot of people love Half of a Yellow Sun. I feel like I need to try it. Louise Erdrich, The Roundhouse. Someone from my library recommended it to me. Said that they'd given it away as part of it was this book giveaway thing a couple years ago to promote the work. So I have read Louise Erdrich once before. I have Future Home of the Living God. I have another bookshelf on the other side of the camera. I have Future Home of the Living God, which I enjoyed. There's some parts that didn't quite fit for me. I think I need to read it again, understanding the context of it a bit more. And I haven't read a lot of Native authors. I know that she is Native American herself. I think this book has to do with sexual assault, if I remember correctly. We'll pick that up at some point. The Circle. I have watched the movie. I have not read the book. I thought the book would be interesting. It's, again, like a modern dystopia, which I usually do pretty well with. Once Upon a River, because I read The 13th Tale, and I got that from Victoria, from what Victoria read. So I also picked up Once Upon a River, because I think I'm a little bit in love with Diane Setterfield. This one is Chris's book. Then I have Barracoon. I read Zora Neale Hurston's other famous, I have so many bookshelves in here. Their Eyes Were Watching God. I read that. I absolutely loved it. I've been wanting to read more of hers. I saw Barracoon, so I figured I'd give some of her nonfiction a try. Alright, last shelf. I'm not going to move the camera down anymore because I'm feeling a little crowded in here. The Organ Thieves, got this for my birthday from one of my bestest best friends. The shocking story of the first heart transplant in the segregated South. I want to read about that. Race and medical history go terribly together, but it's also really interesting. I feel like it's really important to be aware of this history. Clean and White, a history of environmental racism in the United States. I never thought of cleanliness and race as topics that really go together, but it does talk about how you have like the white water fountain and the black water fountain, and I guess I just never thought of that as a hygiene thing. To me, it was just, that was what was part of segregation. So it'll be interesting to actually read more into that. Then, Hood Feminism, I did actually start this. I'm almost halfway through it. I'm enjoying it. I started it for the Feminist as Fuck Book Club, and I haven't continued. Like, I like it, but I think part of it is that I have not been in a nonfiction mood, and then with this particular set of essays and the topics that it talks about, you really have to like sit down and read a whole chapter at a time so you can get like the full scope of it. And it's just not what I've been in the mood for, but it is really good and I am really liking it. So I don't quite understand why it's taken me that long. Are Prisons Obsolete by Angela Y. Davis. I really want to read more about the prison system, and at this point in what I've learned, I think I'm pretty much against, I'm against mass incarceration. I don't know that I'm totally against incarceration, but I do want to read more about it, and I think I have a lot to learn on that topic. I think it's really interesting. I want to understand more of that and better flesh out my opinions in that area. 100 Vicious Little Vampire Stories. I have been reading this since March, and actually I haven't read it much in the last couple months. I'm liking short stories more this year. I'm finding my spot with short stories. But after I read a short story, I feel like I'm done with the book when I'm not. So I think I need to try and make a goal, like after each book that I read at least one short story. I think that'll help me get through it more. I'm enjoying it. It's not what I gravitate towards. Phantom of the Opera, I like the original story well enough, or not the original story, I like the play itself, so I really would like to read the original book that I came from. I hear it's very kind of cult classic-y. I think that'll be interesting. Really, all the rest of these are classics, and my classics I actually keep on this shelf next to me. I don't keep my classic books on my TBR because I have enough of them that I want to know that I'm going to have space for everything. So all of my classics stay on the classics shelf whether or not I've read them. I like that I have this turning thing on my camera now. However, there are several of these that I want to read. I'm not going to go through all of them, but the classics that I have on my shelf down here are like ones that I really do need to read soon because I've been sitting on them for a while. I've been wanting to read them for the last several months and haven't gotten there yet. So it's like sitting on the shelf as a reminder, you really need to read these. I have A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, Jane Eyre and Villette for reading through my Bronte books, The Boys from Brazil, and The Martian Chronicles. I was actually supposed to read already because of my last haul revisit that I had, which I'll link my last one down below so you can have an idea of what those are all about. Native Son, I picked this up when I was shopping with a friend. She really wants me to read this, and I haven't picked it up yet. I've heard some interesting things about the plot line and how it really divides people, so I'd like to see where I stand on that. The last book in the Robots series by Isaac Asimov, and then I'm hoping to pick up some of his other books. Probably not in 2021, because I don't know that those books are available from my library. Not the Foundation series. It's in the middle. It's like Pebbles in the Sky or something. Those three. And last but not least, Jamaica Inn. This is another new book that I picked up recently. I also got a copy for Hillary from Melted Books. So we will be buddy reading this at some point in 2021. That is pretty much it. Besides some classics on this shelf that I want to read, but I'm not going to go into because this shelf is like endless. That is it from me. I hope you enjoy this. Let me know what you're looking forward to hearing me talk about with this list of books. Please like, subscribe, be my friend on social media. I'll see all of you in my next video. Bye, friends.